afternoon. This presentation is being videotaped, so please silence your cell phones at this time. So far, we've been lucky that no one's had one go off. And time has been allotted at the end of the program for questions, so please hold your questions until then. My name is Mark Whitelaw from the Chicago Coin Club, and on behalf of the American Numismatic Association Chicago Coin Club, I want to welcome you to the 2019 World's Fair of Money. Our next presenter is Dr. Michael Fuljenz. He's going to speak on fakes, news, the proliferation of counterfeits and how to avoid becoming a victim. Michael's known as America's gold expert. Dr. Michael Fuljenz is a former authenticator and bidder for the ANA. He's a member of the Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force and teaches about combating counterfeit and numismatic fraud to law enforcement agencies on behalf of the Numismatic Crime Information Center. Dr. Fuljenz is president of Universal Coins and Bullion in Beaumont, Texas, and has received prestigious anti-counterfeiting service awards from the PNG and Industrial Council for Tangible Assets. His books and newsletters about gold and rare coins have won Best of the Year awards from the Numismatic Literary Guild, and he is a recipient of that organization's top honor, the Columbia Award. Dr. Fuljenz has served with distinction as a consultant to the Federal Trade Commission, U.S. Postal Service, the Attorney General of Texas, United States Mint, the Royal Canadian Mint, is on the board of directors of both Crime Stoppers of Beaumont and ICTA. Please welcome Dr. Michael Fuljenz.
In another lifetime, in my 20s, I taught chemistry and physics in high school and chemistry in college at Miami State University and San Houston High School. I also was a summer school principal, and we called these throwaways. You know, kids didn't like to make airplanes or whatever, but I like to give people something they can bring home with them and use as a resource. Doug Davis, who will be heading up the Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force after September 1, heads up the Numismatic Crime Information Center, and we have taught courses together for over 6 years at different events, including Crime Stoppers of Texas and even here yesterday. Up until September 1st, someone I admire greatly, Beth Deisher, former editor of Coin World, and headed up our Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force and did a phenomenal job bringing attention to government agencies and to the public about counterfeits. Beth is with us right here. Please stay seated, Beth. And she's done a phenomenal job raising awareness. I have up here brochures from the Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force. And Beth has done so much heavy lifting on this to educate people. And please take one of these afterwards, bring it home, look at it, share it with friends. It is so important that we get the word out and be cognizant of all the issues out there. I will tell you, it's not just about rare coins. There are a lot of quarters and halves. You know, you can Google the halves that China sent back here trying to cash them in with our government, saying they were found in the cash for clunkers in the car seats. Now, if you ever had a clunker, you didn't lose many half dollars in those clad half dollars, but they make money on the metal content of them. So even in your change today, take a good look at it. You may have a counterfeit quarter or half in there. It's not just the rarities. In 1984, I had a doctor walk in, and I'm kind of making this like a whole session at the ANA Summer Seminar. I want to tell you stories, but I'm going to tell you things when you get back that you can use and will click on certain counterfeits and how they come in and where you might encounter them. From people who serve in the military, to people who buy at flea markets. Online is a great risk. Over 80% are coming from China. Used to be most of them were coming from the Middle East. But in 1984, I had a doctor walk into my office. His name was Jack Andoni. He was head of the LSU Board of Supervisors. And he and his fellow doctors at his clinic, the largest OB/GYN clinic in New Orleans, had bought about $1 million in counterfeit and altered coins, but they didn't know it yet. A partner of Jack's came in a few weeks earlier and brought me 10 coins to see what I thought of them. And he just wanted to see if they were graded correctly, because he bought from this lawyer he met at the Catholic Church. Now, I'm Catholic. I've been president of the Catholic School Board. I have a wonderful Baptist wife. You say we're Catholics. That's like designer dogs, okay? But 40 years. My wife's mom used to say the Catholics run a great facility. They're assisted living facility, but the Baptists are better cooks, and I agree. Fried chicken on Wednesday nights was pretty good. Anyway, I have a doctor in my office, and I looked at him and I said, I don't think they're real, but let's send them to ANA and verify it. And a few weeks later, I got back the body bags, we call them, and it said questionable authenticity. Well, then he tells his buddy, and the buddy comes in with greens and amniotic fluid and blood on from delivering babies, and puts a big safe deposit box down, and says, please tell me these aren't counterfeit. And I flew in Michael Fuljenz. Michael Wright has written some very good counterfeit articles in Coin World for many years, contributed. And we went through for Easter for 3 days, and we separated out. We went to Jack, he brought in his attorney, they got the Secret Service involved. The attorney, Clarence Rashide, who's now passed away, threatened to shoot me. When the Secret Service arrested him, he curled up on the floor in the fetal position, and he got put away. He did make restitution of over $1 million to the doctors. We found out that he was not only buying counterfeits at coin shows, purportedly for jewelry, but he was going to a jeweler in town to add mint marks. You know, an altered coin is a real coin that has something altered, and added mint mark or something. He was altering counterfeit coins, so he could sell the same coin, gold coin, 3 times or 2 times with different mint marks on it. He got their trust because he went to the Catholic Church with all of them, where the lawyer's brother was the Monsignor. They went on retreats together. They were godfathers to each other's children. And I say this to say, you might run into someone you trust, but like Reagan said, trust but verify. They may either be incompetent and trustworthy, or they may not be trustworthy. And you got to trust but verify. They trusted this man for 10 years. They took time when he had bypass surgery to sit with him in the hospital and stay with him. And he was selling them counterfeits for 10 years. What a betrayal. So we got the money back. I wanted the coins to be donated to the ANA for the teaching collection. It would have doubled the teaching collection, but the Secret Service kept them and would not let, at other times in different branches, in different areas, they would let us keep them for teaching purposes at ANA, but they melted them all. But this is one of the rare occurrences where you get someone full restitution. The attorney, I later learned, I was looking back over the first counterfeit detection book I ever owned. It was done by Virgil Hancock, a former president of the ANA. Virgil was a president of the Houston Coin Club, and he'd come over when I was president of the Southwest Louisiana Coin Club. He would come over and speak to us. And Virgil was very giving of his time, and he was a founder of ANAX, the Authentication and Grading Service of the ANA, back in the 70s through the 80s and the 90s when ANA was in operation. And Virgil really was very important. I had a friend in the coin club, an older man who collected 16D dimes. And later on, ANAX determined every one he had clocks with 16D dimes, a hat with 16D dimes, every one was an added mint mark. The importance of grading services and authentication services can't be understated with that. And it gets us to also the Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force and the importance of that. Anyway, the doctors were very appreciative, and they said, could we do anything for you or Michael Fuljenz, and paid Fuljenz's expenses to come in and out, but we didn't charge him a thing, and we became friends. And then 5 years later, when we found that my wife and I could not have kids, they said, now we can do something for you. And they helped me adopt 2 children. That's how I got my kids. So it's nice when those things come around. I had a military gentleman come in my office with these silver dollars, the bad ones, with questionable authenticity ones. And he used his savings in Iraq, Afghanistan, he served 4 tours in the Middle East, to buy silver dollars because he thought it would help start a life when he came back to his country. And they were all fake. No questionable authenticity. You got to be careful in flea markets. You got to be careful in areas that you don't know online, Craigslist, Alibaba, eBay. Very careful. I had a salesman of mine just test online and order a $1 Morgan silver dollar. It came in the mail from China. They couldn't afford that. $1 Morgan. It's amazing what can be done. So you've got to be very careful. They're not stamped copy like the Hobby Protection Act asks all the time. So this military gentleman who's gone to work in the prisons, working as a prison guard, they give nice bonuses, pay isn't great. I guess the benefits are pretty good, but they give a nice signing on bonus. He was devastated. Had pawnbrokers walk into my office with bags of trade dollars. Well, the first giveaway on them was the date didn't even exist. You know, how do you know they're bad? Well, let me show you the dates that trade dollars were made. You know, but they're getting so much better. That's rare now. The counterfeits are getting better, but pawnbrokers come up in with stuff. There's no Santa Claus in numismatics. Beth will say, first giveaway is the price. It's too cheap to be true. It's probably got a problem. Know the expertise of who you're doing business with. So I get to this little handout here I gave you. If you look at your handout, on the front page, if you have a problem, there are people on here you can call and talk to about it or ask for. And for consumer protection, John Albanese runs the Numismatic Consumer Alliance. Doug Davis does the Numismatic Crime Information Center. He's a former police chief over near Dallas in a city named Pantego. And you've got the ICTA Industry Affairs Office, David Crenshaw, could direct you somewhere. A grading services, Rick Montgomery's the president of NGC. He and I graded across from each other, and we've known each other for a long time. There are other lawyers and other people on here. Paul Gilks at Coin World is a great guy, excellent writer, very receptive. Jerry Jordan heads up Southeast Texas Investigates. He's also on the NASCAR board and under editors. And Jerry's done a phenomenal job exposing issues with hotel coin buyers we exposed. You can go to someone like a hotel coin buyer and they'll tell you your coins are counterfeit. We had that happen on CBS News and other things, or they'll just buy it for the gold. They're not that expertise. And we did a whole bunch of series on hotel buyers. So on the other side, just because someone tells you counterfeit, trust but verify. Make sure the person has the integrity and the expertise to tell you that so you don't sell your coins too cheap. Had a $3 gold piece that certified proof 64 by PCGS, and a New York pawnbroker on TV said it was counterfeit. It was a genuine proof 64 cracked out of a PCGS holder, and he wanted to buy it for the gold value. We've had $10,000 coins with $60 offers, and they say they're counterfeit. Rolls of silver quarters, the lady said was slippery, and said, I'll just spend them for you. So be careful with people telling you something's counterfeit when you don't know. That's why with these doctors, I sent it to ANAX, or other clients, I sent it to PCGS. Ken Brissett, editor of the Red Book, headed up ANAX when I was there at the ANA, and we had a package come in from a lady I'll name Bonnie. And Bonnie swore for 1834 bust half was an 1834 O and was worth $500,000. She insured it to us for $500,000, registered insured. And we wrote back, you know, we're not going to pay to insure this back to you, but it's not an 1834 O. You know, the New Orleans Mint wasn't built till 1835, and they didn't start striking coins till 1838. Well, that didn't matter to Bonnie. She thought it was a conspiracy by the Red Book, by ANAX, and everything else. So I was visiting friends in New Orleans. I'm from Lake Charles, Louisiana. And I went to the New Orleans Mint and got pictures of the ground breaking. Said the ground wasn't even broke then. Sent it back to the attorney she hired to write us and threaten to sue us. And finally we got a letter, never mind, just send it back. Insure it for $100 and send it back. You get people who think that you're misrepresenting or falsely claiming something is not real. And it had a shadow in the metal that maybe toning, maybe dirt or something else that looked kind of like an O, but it, you know, they didn't make it, it wasn't an O mint. And so you have to prove to people sometime whether something is genuine, altered, counterfeit or not, and we just didn't want to pay $500,000 to send it back. Getting a little off topic, but similar things, I had a peace dollar sent in to me at ANAX, and I was grading across from Rick Montgomery, and it had a scratch, beautiful gem coin, frosty, but had a little scratch here on the cheek, and then an eraser that dulled it. Today they might laser it in to dull it, or other things to dull it, so the grader might miss it or upgrade it, but I caught it, Rick and I marked, no grade, altered, they had taken an eraser to it. We returned it. About a month later, we get the coin back fully toned. I match up photos at 8X, just like we do on other things, use photos to determine be it counterfeit, altered, and I said, it's the same coin, same mark, scratch, and they artificially toned it. Maybe with potassium sulfate or some solution. So we sent it back artificially toned. About a month later, the coin comes in again with a crescent toning over that mark. This time, like, okay, I'm lucky enough I'm one of the 8 people in there who's on the write-up to get 4 people in a consensus, artificially toned. Came in one more time with another type tone, crescent or something, artificially toned. So the dealer, very prominent dealer, calls me up and says, Mike, calls Ken Brissett up, just ripping him. You guys at ANAX don't know what you're doing, you don't know real toning, that's an end of a roll coin. And I said, Ken, I got this. So I got all 4 pictures and overnighted it to the dealer. And I phoned him, he didn't call me, and he says, Mike, you made your point, send the coin back. And I said, but he said, I want you to know I didn't artificially tone that coin. And I said, you know what? That's really even more disturbing, because unbeknown to you, somebody has access to your coins and is artificially toning them at night. You got a security problem, bud. And he says, okay, you made the point, and send it back. You can't make up these stories. You know, when you've been in business for 40 years plus, you run into things, and they kind of overlap with everything. If you turn in here, this is a press release that I did with the help of the best in the industry, Don Perlman, who does press releases for ANA, P&G, and other people. And we got together for the State Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, and we put together a team, really a great team. It included Gary Adkins, who was vice president and later president of ANA, John Albanese, who co-founded PCGS, NGC, and CAC, Doug Davis, head of the Numismatic Crime Information Task Force, Beth Deisher, Terry Hanlon of Bill Engage, Jerry Jordan, Kathy McFadden, who was the executive director at the time, Rick Montgomery, Don Perlman, and the head of our local BBB, and Miles Standish at NGC. Always kid people. Miles replaced me. He's now vice president of NGC. He was also very high-ranking at PC. I said that when I left, they didn't want to buy another chair, so they measured our butts and they hired Miles because he fit nicely in the chair, and they didn't have to replace it. Nice guy, but we all got together and made suggestions for Ken Paxton's office, and this is the Investing in Gold Coin Consumer Alert, which I think, even though I'm biased, is the best by any Attorney General out there, because I looked at other Attorney Generals and learned from it, and then got feedback, and there was only a few minor changes in the intro to this, and they accepted everything we did. They have places to contact, and one of the bullets back here where it says page 3 of 4 is counterfeit coins and bars as well as counterfeit grading service holders are a possible risk, especially with online transactions. Just like I'm telling you, we got this out. If you have contacts with an Attorney General, or we've gotten BBBs to put this out, it at least makes people aware of very important things like this. Seniors make up 14% of the U.S. population, but account for 60% of callers to the National Fraud Hotline. So we have a little gray hair in this room. I'm not pointing any out, but just something to be aware of where the targeting goes. I also included the Miscongeniality Award, the 10 that didn't get picked, and we decided it was tough. We had 20 things we liked as a group. We had to limit it down to 10, but if you look down at number 9, be wary of uncertified coins offered by vendors in flea markets or other venues where the seller is not a verifiable coin expert. That includes small auctions. You'll have these odd estate auctions, and they'll do odd Dutch sales or all sites of sales. They'll come to your town to auction off an estate or a collection. Be very careful. seen a number of counterfeits in those. Too often coins offered at these are overvalued, cleaned, or counterfeit. So those were the things we warned for the state. This year, I wrote an article in the market report of Coinage magazine. Coinage magazine just had a very good issue. It's on newsstands at Barnes & Nobles or Books A Million, and it's on certified coins and the evolution of certified holders, going back to the very beginning of holders. An important part in identifying a counterfeit is knowing if it's in the right generation holder for what you're looking at. They do have a numismatic museum. We don't publicize this too much out there. We don't want the counterfeiters to get too much information. But NGC and PCGS have online their museum of holders. And you can see by timeline. Timelines are very important to figure things out, prosecute bad guys. The timeline of which holders, the rattlers for a PCGS holder, up to today, the green label, the circular insert, the current ones, both services have their museum of holders. It's worth looking at that online and keeping up, and I will tell you that the authentication, I think, is very good consistently. Grading changes a little bit over time with different people. I'll tell you that the grading service didn't like to grade anything in '67 until the mid-90s. We made some of the first commemorative gold coins in '67, and it was like breaking the glass ceiling out of '66s. They did not want to go to '67. And, but the Museum of Holders is a very important thing. If you leave here and you haven't looked at that, look that up, Museum of Holders for PCGS, for NGC, so you're aware of how far back it was graded. And if you're matching up a coin and a holder, you're a little suspicious. Maybe the font of the letters is a little off. Maybe some other things about the you're worried about it. Match it up with the date. And of course, both services, you can go online, type in the serial number, and in the more recently graded coins, you can see a photo. A lot of them you can't. Now, in this picture, we're showing a proof buffalo. I had a customer call me about a year ago, and he had bought 10 proof buffaloes and NGC holders from a pawnbroker who was now not in business anymore. He had sold out. And he sent them in to me just for evaluation, and he just had a little bad feeling about it because he tried to sell them back to the guy, and the guy really didn't want to buy them. And he bought some rare coins from me, so he sent them in, and the design was off. The picture is here, and the design on the left is fake. The photocopy doesn't bring everything in, but when he called in, I mean, the design on the right is fake. Counterfeit right here, it's like, but when he called in, I said, you know, the coin's counterfeit, but I've called the president of NGC. You type in the cert, and it is a real cert. You don't have a picture, but it was counterfeit. They had counterfeited the number. Now the barcodes don't work, and we scan barcodes, but the holder was a pretty good replication, not perfect, but pretty good to fool the average public. Maybe only half or a third in this room, but in the coin, the design was, they made their own design. They didn't even do a good copy of it, but it's good enough to fool the average consumer. And it's a certified holder. And so Rick verified it, that it was a counterfeit holder. The guy had about 10 different serial numbers, only had one to top. So then, thank God for Beth and the Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force, I forwarded the information to her. And subsequently, they have found other people getting these in the country and being distributed in other locales, right, Beth? And so when we find one, you know, if you find someone ripping someone off in one area, chances are it's happening in other areas across the country because advertisements and all of that, they don't just stay in their area. That's one of the problems with working with law enforcement, who I'm on board of Crime Stoppers. And my dad was a district attorney, and great respect for law enforcement, but they don't necessarily, if someone's robbed 4 banks in a 20-mile area, they get that news. If someone rips someone up in Washington State, in Michigan, in Chicago, and here, they don't know that. Except Doug Davis, if a coin dealer, or you guys let Doug Davis know or when Beth know, then they know it's happening in more places, which is very important where you all come in and your clubs and the people you associate with. You hear about a bad guy, you've got some places to call here. Because it helps us when the police chief of a little town like McGee, Mississippi, where this guy bought these coins, is saying, I don't know anything about coins, but tell me about this. And we can say, here's an article, here's who the Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force, led by someone as reputable as Beth and talented as her, and this is why the person is ripped off. It's not even gold, the holder's counterfeited, the coin's counterfeited, and now you start hoping to get the police officer's attention. Getting that threshold level for FBI is $500,000 to $1 million. Secret Service. I had a guy come in, and it's in this story here, with 85 American Eagles that were counterfeit about 3 years ago. And U.S. Coins and Kenny Duncan, myself, Doug Davis, Jerry Jordan, we could not get Secret Service at that time involved. Today, with Beth's work, we might be able to. But at the time, we didn't have the Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force. FBI wasn't interested, but we did get police interested, and they started doing it elsewhere, and we got them put away. And we got the money back for the gentleman in Houston who was in his 80s. And he didn't know they were bad coins, except he tried to sell a few, and I got a call from Houston, and they said, do you know anything about this? And we started sharing and networking. Networking is so key at any job, in anything, and we helped get the guy his money back. But they were counterfeit American Eagles. With the work of the Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force, if you go to the back here, Beth did a report. Look at the last page of the small version. If I gave you a big version, this is one that has a lot of stories I gave numismatic professionals. It talks about, and actually I'm going to turn to the next to last page. Beth put out a survey that 43.3% of surveyed coin dealers said that some customers had tried to sell them counterfeit silver American Eagle bullion coins, while 41.2% reported customers trying to sell them fake gold American Eagle coins. This isn't a small number for dealers across the country that were surveyed. Then you saw when it comes to fake bars and ingots, 57.8% of dealers reported customers trying to sell them fake pant bars or ingots with fake or original packaging, or fake versions of the original packaging. And the coins seen most, on here it's Morgan dollars, 71.7% of dealers had seen them, trade dollars 66, seeded dollars 48.6, and gold coins were 42.1% and 36%. The dealer, the attorney who was selling counterfeits to my doctor friends in '84, most of these coins at that time came from the Middle East. Now most of them come from China. And most of them that came from the Middle East were almost 90% gold. The ones from China can have some gold or typically don't. They're copper, nickel, zinc, they have and you go to Hong Kong, to China, that's been there, Jerry Jordan's been there. It's not too hard to find and buy some counterfeits. This is not hard to do. The attorney who was selling to the doctors, he was asking for them for jewelry, it was his line. But he's written up in the Hancock-Spanbauer book under the 10 Indians for an attorney that cruised the shows looking for counterfeits. And Virgil was one of the first to report on them. That was back in '79 and '80. And you know, you could find some jewelry counterfeits, and you know, if you went to the Bahamas, you would find some there, but they were the right gold, and they just made them for jewelry, basically. But 2.5 Indians, 5s, 3s, one of the earliest counterfeits that was famous is what was called the Omega counterfeit. The story went that the artist of the coin was so proud of his work, he put a little Omega symbol on the coin. And you had it on high reliefs, you had it on 3s back in the 70s and 80s. Stories and diagnostics like this are available in some updated books. Former president of the ANA, Bob Campbell, has done some excellent books, and he's taught the courses at ANA summer seminars for over 2 decades. What I taught for over 25 sessions in the 80s and 90s, Bob has followed up and taken it to the next level. He's done a phenomenal job with that. And if you're interested, look here for books on counterfeits. Bill Fiva has done some works there. Bill and I would teach together, and Bill loved to talk about buffalo nickels that were carved, hobo nickels, but he also did work on counterfeit books. But Bob Campbell's done some of the best work, and there are other books on counterfeits. If it interests you, go look, but the latest and most updated, I think, would you say are Bob's books, or what, Beth, would you, yeah. So that's something to look for if you have greater interest in depth. Our grading services, particularly NGC, the official coin dealer of our grading service at AMA, follows up on online coins, works with eBay to get things down. They really have done a nice job looking online. I did want to bring up what I put at the first of this article here, and then how prevalent counterfeits are and how they affect us. A report called the Counterfeit Report said that Apple reported that 90% of Apple products they purchased on Amazon were counterfeit. They say it's a 1.7 trillion per year enterprise, and it's larger in dollar terms than illicit drugs or human trafficking, and it's really attracting more counterfeiters and more crooks because the penalties are less if they're caught than drugs or other things. The volume is expected to grow to 2.8 trillion and cost over 5 million jobs by 2022. It's a serious problem. CNBC's covered it, and really with the Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force, they have been making our ports of entry, where things come in by ship, and some comes in by flying, but by ship, making them more aware there because they weren't looking. You know, my son, when he was a teenager, showed me how he could order from China fake driver's licenses for $50 to $75 because you're 16 and you want one that says 18 or 21 so you can buy a six-pack. You know, that's what some boys who were 16, 17, 18 want to do. And it was amazing. And last time I was in Chicago, they showed a bust on some shipments of Monopoly sets. And in the Monopoly games were packs. That's how they were shipping in the fake driver's licenses. So counterfeits don't always have to be Rolexes or Tiffany or coins. They can be something you don't think about, that your son could be drinking and driving, or your daughter, in China, and the counterfeiting that they allow, and it keeps coming into this country. Isn't just a financial, but could have a human consequence to your loved ones if they're getting fake IDs through them. So the article I have here is about that. That's part of why we have a tariff war. We won't get into all the politics, but we need to have more stringent, on our end, watching and addressing counterfeit issues that are out there. Let's see. The California gold coins. I have people come in quite a bit with California gold coins, territorial gold coins. And the thing I see the most, that you smile, you open up your red book, California gold coins, and they'll tell you if it has a bear on the back, it's counterfeit. Okay? There were no real quarters, halves, dollars with bears on the back. And one of the things that comes into me is that. There are many different tests for counterfeits. I showed you that I would tell you the easiest things to do are to have a caliper, check the width or the diameter. You remember from science classes, radius is half the diameter. Measure the diameter, measure the width. The reading is often a little goofy, or the rims, but you want to measure the weight. A lot of them are off weight. They won't go in, and because silver or gold are precious metals and they often use lighter metals, they also don't, they may be thicker, they can be thinner, they don't fit in rolls nicely. There are a number of different devices. Many of them are too expensive for the average collector, but the simplest thing is a ring test. Measure the weight, measure the width, measure the diameter, and you'll find that will eliminate many of them that are made. But there are better ones. And unfortunately, you gotta be careful, especially, I look at every single silver eagle. I look at, if I don't know the source. Best thing is I buy from sources I know, newer coins, but you just gotta measure the weight, you gotta look at them, and you gotta keep up because they're always getting better. You make dust or you eat dust. If you're not, you know, from Texas now, so we say things like that. And when you're looking out for number one, don't step in number two. That's what Rodney Dangerfield used to say. If you ever watch Rodney when he was in the movie Back to School, he was speaking to the graduates at the university in the graduation speech. And he said, it's rough out there. Stay at home as long as you can. But when you get out there, when you're looking out for number one, don't step in number two. So, wise words to live by. Any questions? I've pretty much gone through the, Don Perlman was in Greece. So anybody here travel overseas, like to vacation? He was in Greece, and he's walking around, and he saw some vendors with coins. And they looked good. There were US coins, there were foreign coins. And his tour guide said, sir, be careful. Many of those coins are younger than you. That is true. When you're traveling the world, looking at coins, not just at the flea market in town, not just in the markets in San Francisco or other places, be careful. You want the coins that are dated from the 19th and 18th century to be a little older than we are, okay? So this is the type of thing at any summer seminars. We sit down, we tell stories, we look at coins, we share information, and more important, we preach the gospel of numismatics. And that's what you are. Go out there and tell your coin club. Tell people something. My wife and I like to come back with stories. We come back, here's something we can remember, a great story. Go back and I'll be speaking to the Houston Coin Club on the national motto, "In God We Trust." But I'll also be speaking on this in September. They were kind enough to invite me over there. And you try to come back from events like this with some stories. And hopefully by being at this great event, the World's Fair of Money, and going to booths, Beth and Doug Davis are at the Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force booth way back in the hinterlands of the right corner of the depths of the convention center. But they're there, and it's findable. Pass the U.S. Mint and keep on going, and you'll get there.
1765.
1765. It's worth going back there. Talk to Beth about, she's here tomorrow, Doug's here, they're here after this. She has all these brochures, and you can learn more about counterfeiting. And I said, if she came today, I would be a shameless shill to support them, but I am writing, and you don't have to match it, but I hope you'll go by. This isn't like church, don't get scared, we're not going to pass a collection. Nobody's holding the door right now before you get out of here. But I'm writing a check right now to the Anti-Counterfeiting Task Force for $500, and anything is appreciated. They do not share your name with other people, and we so need it, whatever the amount is. And Beth, thank you for all you're doing, and ACTF, and here is my donation. So please consider doing likewise. Any questions?
The foundation is a 501c3, so any donation is tax deductible, and we exist entirely from donations. So any support you can give us, we very much appreciate it. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Any questions I can help with?
I'd like to comment.
Sure.
My specialty is ancient coins, and everybody I know that's ever gone to Europe and come back with an ancient coin has never had a real one. So never, ever buy an ancient coin from a street vendor in Europe.
Thank you. Yes.
A collector I know just this morning had said to me that he sees so many new ancient coins that he is concerned just because he sees so many of them that look so good. Have you been looking at these? Do you think maybe we're just lucky that the people, archaeologists, have found a bunch, or do you think it's fakes?
My specialty is basically U.S. coins. You know, my brother-in-law is a dermatologist, and I don't ask him about OBGYN issues. I'll leave that is not my area, but I would encourage you to talk to some of the specialists and ancients on that. This gentleman seems to have some knowledge there. Maybe after you come talk to him. Sorry, I cannot help you with that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you did a ring test with the silver ore. Can you also do a sound test with, say, copper or bronze?
I do it with gold. This is a buddy, I don't even know what this is, I didn't shoot it, but you can see this crew ran and it fooled some people, and if you're going quickly through stuff, the concern is you get bags of like XF or BG Morgan dollars. This one's hard, but it's questionable authenticity. But these are a little better, they're still not that good. The piece dollar looks kind of good, but it's got a funky rim, and they ring horribly. But when they're thrown in, dealers trade bags of it. If you ever buy a bag of junk silver, you don't want 100 of the coins to be the counterfeit quarters or dimes coming in here. And you don't want on a bag of certain dollars or a half bag of certain dollars that they throw in 10 or 20% of these things that are not worth, you can buy for $1 online. So the concern is when you're buying large quantities, the dealers don't want to go through and look at every quarter, every dime, every half in a bag of junk, but you're forced to do it. I would not buy a bag of junk unless your dealer tells you he hadn't just put it in a counting machine. And the low value stuff is a concern now that it wasn't as much in the past, but even on dollars, certain dollars, it's like putting your hands to me on a chalkboard. That's part of the problem, but you can ring gold coins the same way. Now, would I take a Jim B. Morgan and put it on my fingertip and ring it? No, even with plastic pen, you don't need a metal device. A good big plastic pen does it just fine here, and I don't think it damages it, but I don't want I'm a sweater. I'm sorry, I admit. And I put it on my finger. I would not put a rare coin. I would not put a coin that had quality on my fingertip and do this. But at ANA, we take photos, we would do specific gravity, we would do a lot of different things. But for me, a lot of it is eye test. Are the letters crisply struck? And there are things I can tell you, but I don't tell you everything. Because some of this we don't want out, because then they'll correct it. The first counterfeit PCGS holders were caught because the gentleman who made the holders didn't have the right shapes of some of the letters on the PCGS holder, and they had copied the shapes in some cases of genuine U.S. Mint products intentionally as a little covert security device. So there's all sorts of things you can do, subtle things in the shapes of design elements, just like currency. You don't need a Mylar strip, you don't need micro printing or optical variable devices. You can have certain things on there that they miss that are small details we look at. And on a lot of the transfers, some of the things like the designer's initials get weakened and mushy, but easiest thing for y'all on most of it is weigh them, check the circumference, check the diameter, check the width, and look at the reading and compare it. The biggest thing is compare it to a real one. Okay, next. Anybody? Yes.
Mike, what would you say to walking up to a dealer's case, seeing 2x2s that are marked as counterfeit, but quote, sold as educational material?
Well, technically, these are illegal though. Now, getting law enforcement, right now, I'm saying these are questionable authenticity, but technically, and I've gotten letters from our police department and others saying Mike's teaching with these, but I would bet the ANA might have a convention rule on that. But that's for them you might mention it to an ANA official and ask them what, because this is their show, it's not my show. I'm not on the board. There are many fine people on the board, but if they have counterfeits displayed, even though they're labeled, if the coins on them don't say copy in compliance with the Hobby Protection Act, would you say there's a problem? Yeah, you address that, please.
Title 18 of the U.S. Code, Chapter 25, has a very precise definitions and also addresses the various things of knowingly possessing a counterfeit coin is a federal crime, punishable up to 5 years, plus fines. Now, we don't see many people or many law enforcement coming to a show like this, but it could happen. And I expect more of that to happen in the future. I'll share a story with you. 2 years ago, I went to Washington, D.C. to meet with the top people in the Secret Service. And I was explaining what the problem was, and I said, I can bring along some counterfeit coins to show you. And I could tell that the officer on the end of the phone was a little hesitant. And he said, well, bring images. And so actually I had some counterfeit coins in the room, in my hotel room, but I didn't bring them down to the meeting. I brought images. And so I brought the subject up again, and I said, would you be interested in seeing some counterfeit coins? And he said, madam, if you present me a coin and you tell me you know it's counterfeit, I have to arrest you. I said, fine, we will use images. But to knowingly possess, sell, buy, or sell is covered in the U.S. statutes, and it is punishable, and it's a felony offense. Now, as I say, not many people today are encountering that. We have broached federal officials and trying to get some type of leeway for educational purposes, and I hope that maybe we can work something out. One of the things that we have queried the FTC about is when is it proper to mark a coin copy? It has been interpreted that the copy must be put on at the time of manufacture, a replica coin. And we queried to say, can we countermark those coins, copy, and then it would be legal to own and to use as educational purposes. We're waiting for that response to come back. But I would be a little bit leery of advertising. Did any of you go to the Philadelphia show, A&A, last year? Yes. A few of you. There was a 5-case exhibit of counterfeit coins, and they were on loan from Homeland Security investigations. That was a case that we helped with. We identified the counterfeits. The counterfeits were seized from the guy's home and also intercepted by Customs and Border Protection. We had about 10% of the counterfeits for public education. The material intercepted from one guy, total, if they had gone into the market at current day prices, would have been $46 million. And we hoped we would be able to have that display here, but the man is supposed to be sentenced. And we thought that sentencing was going to take place August 5th, but it's been postponed to October 8th. But very prominent in the case was the fact that they were on loan from Homeland Security. They were not the property of the task force. So it's an open question, but be very careful. If you're having local shows and you want to exhibit, be very, very careful about that.
The good part, I'll look at that.
I encounter counterfeits every week in my travels. In fact, I've donated probably a couple hundred of them to the ANA for educational purposes. But when I do encounter someone who has counterfeits, or maybe just one in their collection, how do you suggest that be handled?
The legal answer to that is to contact the Secret Service and turn them over to the Secret Service, or to turn them over to local law enforcement, and they have a way to indeed turn it over to law enforcement. If you want to donate them, is ANA still receiving them?
Yes, we are.
For teaching purposes, that's the type of thing we're trying to get worked out with law enforcement. Obviously, it behooves everybody to be able to teach about them and help you understand what you're looking at. But it's a gray area right now. But legally, if you knowingly have a coin, whether it's a dealer or if it's a collector, it should be turned over to law enforcement. And Secret Service is, by law, the entity that destroys counterfeits.
When we were at ANA, and I'm speaking about the 80s and 90s when I taught or worked there, we had a wonderful collection, and we had an agreement with Secret Service for that area. When I was in New Orleans and we busted Clarence, they didn't let us keep it for that purpose, and we quoted our Secret Service we knew in Colorado, that's them in New Orleans, and then We also said, well, you're supposed to at least deface it and return the gold to us. And the doctor, we're not going to do that. Well, we weren't going to kick the wasp. They'd been good enough to respond, help us, and there was a lot of gold they kept and didn't at the time. The law was they were supposed to deface it and return the gold. They didn't do that. I would also say that online, you'll see a number of coins that are marked copy, and when they arrive, they don't have the word copy on them. And that's a sneaky way some of the bad online deliverers of counterfeit coins do, is they list them as a copy like they're compliant, but when you get them, they don't have that on there. So just passing that along. With that, thank you very much, and thank you, Beth, for participating and all you're doing. Please go by. We have these brochures. We have stories here. You want more stories? They're real investigations. This is like 2020 or whatever, nailing the bad guy who advertised and shipped out coins, and Beth and other people in law enforcement did a good job and put them away. You want some more stories? Here's stories. Here's the brochure. Go by the booth. And thank you all for coming.